All right. So welcome everyone to the March 6th meeting of the Scio Environmental Sustainability Task Force. And with that, is there anything that anyone would like to add to the agenda this evening? Seeing nothing, then we'll just, I just wanted to let people know that Elizabeth emailed me, and Elizabeth was the one that was helping with some of the grants and so forth. And
Right.
she said she just has to resign. She's had some health issues that she needs to focus on. So that's, yeah. So if people want to email Elizabeth, if you need her email address, I'll be glad to let folks know. But yeah, not, you know, you retire and you want to do some, have some time to do some things. So
Well,
then,
we'll miss her.
yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's something that she can, take care of and maybe come back because she really wanted to participate. So, all right. Um, and that was the only, sort of communications and correspondence, public comment. Rob or Pam, anything that you'd like to comment on before we get started?
It's cold and it's
Until
cold.
next week.
That's my comment.
Do you need a warming center?
Yeah, right.
Anything, Rob?
Nope, all good here. Have a good meeting.
Okay, thanks, Rob. All right, then I wanted to, then we'll just go ahead with our focus group updates. And this evening, I've invited Ryan Poe from the Hungry Locavore to come and talk a little bit about his background and how he has, sort of supported local farmers. And he has a really good understanding and a network of the farmers that he works with. And there have been several folks that have said, well, why, couldn't we do a farmers market in Scio, et cetera? And I think the core question is, how do we support local agriculture in Scio? So I thought it'd be great to hear a little bit about Ryan's perspective, and then we can ask some questions and then go on to some of the other focus groups. So with that, Ryan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And you guys can hear me, correct? Yep.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Yep. So my name's Ryan Poe. I'm a farmer in the area here. I've worked at Tantray Farm, Sealy Farm, Gates Farm, Brookside Blueberry Farm. I'm missing a few. The farm on Jennings. So I've kind of been around a little bit. The project that I run is called the Hungry Locavore. It's an aggregated CSA model. So to date, the project has had 3 different lives. This is probably the final stage of it, just because we've kind of found our footing. We've got our pillars. We're starting to set anchors into the community. And to date, I've probably worked with about 100 farms in the area and getting close to about 150 prepared food businesses. And the target of the project is to basically show the broader spectrum of local food systems, sustainability, regenerative agriculture, and all through an educational space around seasonality of the food. So I got to this model working as a farm in Dixboro Village. And the irony is that I'm actually returning to that farm on Monday in a land exchange to basically trade food. So there'll be no tenant agreement or farming lease on the land or anything like that. It's just a swap for food, and it's a good gateway to basically try, with the current inflation, is to try to get the chefs to again return to using local food like they did during the pandemic. So although the tariffs and some of the current things that are happening, are putting a lot of people, putting pressure on local businesses, this is kind of a bright light, in the shadows of all that has needed to come to the forefront for a long time. An accountable, transparent food system that's revolving around sustainability and regenerative agriculture. So outside of that, we've tried to make the program really flexible. It operates year round. You can opt in week by week. It's not subscription based. So we tried to make it as flexible and as easy for the general public to engage it. Traditional CSAs, the farm I grew up on, we had a CSA. We would see people come for a couple years and then kind of fade out of the program. And a lot of that was just due to like guilt of too much of the same product, not knowing how to use it. So it put like a strain on the farm because there was no consistency and longevity with that model for us. So as we kind of moved away from that, we started to do the aggregation model, and that promoted more diversity in the offerings. And the modern twist on it now is that, like I said, it's extremely flexible. We do have a handout in Scio Township at Dozier Coffee. That's every Saturday from 9 to 11. And I am always present at that handout. Currently, there's 5 handouts around Ann Arbor. This week, we just opened one up at Corner Brewery in Ypsi. And in another week or two, we're going to open up one at Jolly Pumpkin in Dexter. Those will probably conclude the 6 handouts because the ideal target is to trap the finances in a circular economy. So instead of letting our money go out to big box stores across the planet or across the United States, the focal point here is to try to support the businesses that are already in our community and just get that money to just basically stay here and follow the in-season narrative. Behind California, I believe Michigan is the second biggest growing biome of diversity of crops. And so we kind of have it all here, and we have huge support systems for how many farms we actually have in Washtenaw County in general. It's some of the highest density in all of Michigan. So it's kind of an easy target to try to erect a program like this. And this program is very adaptable to other states or cities or towns. And it's the best part about it is it's just a gigantic think tank. We're all collaborating together. We're sharing ideas together. When I visit farms, which I do visit all the farms that I work with regularly, a lot of that stuff is a trade of information. So we're talking to farmers that are in their 70s, and that information is being transferred down to farmers like in their 30s. So I'm kind of in the middle of that pack. I'm 47. So it's the feel good narrative is that it's beneficial on all fronts. Even down to the packaging. We're trying to eliminate one-time use plastic, full stop. About 90% of the plastic right now comes from the restaurant sector that we feature. And so through A20 and the Sustainable Food Business Coalition that I'm involved in, we did do some grant writing. Well, they did the grant writing. And the idea was to have a returnable one-time use plastic container that would get launched citywide in Ann Arbor. And since we have a 98% return rate on the boxes that we give the food out in, it was like the perfect guinea pig and test pilot to do that. Unfortunately, I was just at a meeting with the A20 panel downtown this afternoon, and that grant is off the board now. So it's back to the drawing board to try to see if we can just implore the restaurants to either use cardstock or things that are recyclable. And our target is to try to be completely carbon neutral by 2025, by the year's end. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I could talk about this stuff forever. I truly love it. I love farming. I love everything about it. It's every day, if you step into the fields with an open mind, you can definitely learn a lot about yourself and the environment and the natural world. And that's what just keeps me involved and, keeps the dedication high and the diversity coming. So it's exciting. So that's kind of me.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, I put just for everyone, I put a link to the website, and you can go in there and you can kind of see what Ryan's box this week is. it's a combination of sort of prepared foods with, I assume those are entities that use local foods in their products, and then also the fresh farm products.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's the general gist of it is 6 to 8 produce items from multiple farms, and then 3 or 4 prepared foods from chefs that we would like to see use more local food. I think with the current inflation and the tariffs that are threatening, I almost see it as impossible that they won't. And that's the huge benefactor of going into this land trade to farm over at Ferris Farm in Dixboro Village again. Because when I started that farm, I didn't know anybody in the area because I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Northern California, and my wife got transferred out here for the auto industry. When I joined the farming community, I just had to start at ground zero. And a way to aggregate and start small is now snowballed down the hill. And over the last 9 years, about 3 months ago, we just surpassed putting $1 million back into our local economy. Obviously, a huge chunk of that came during the pandemic era. I was in a think tank with multiple farms, and I was elected to be the project manager for an aggregated CSA. And I wrote 163 consecutive menus and newsletters for that. And in that process, we sold 200 boxes every week for almost 2 straight years. So we definitely tried to help our businesses survive the pandemic, and I kind of almost see parallels with what could potentially happen here again. And I think some of the restaurants are prepared to kind of have to just switch over and lean into the local food system. And that this scenario is coming now in March when we're about to start our season out here could actually help a pretty significant lifeline to what may happen. I mean, it's a little unpredictable right now, but the ideal target, would try to get chefs like Maggie Long out at Jolly Pumpkin. Her menu is about 80 or 90% local food all the time. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I think it's just the beginning of a sustainable food system.
So, Ryan, what are the barriers to, I mean, why are some restaurants saying no and getting their food from elsewhere as opposed to being local?
It's so tricky on that. It's just they're trained. So when I took my licensing and I had to take the ServSafe test and basically do all the legalities to operate this business, they were heavily preaching like, don't buy local food. If you get listeria and it's this Johnny's, blueberry farm and they get sick, there's no accountability or traceability there. So some of that is implored on the system itself. But a lot of these people, the chefs are almost, I don't know how to say it without being offensive, but the chefs just don't know the system and the farms that are out there. Some chefs do go down to the Carytown Farmers Market and they buy stuff there, but they buy it within the season and it's not like a commitment that happens like every week. So to try to break down those barriers, when I first moved to the community, I only wanted to sell to chefs and it was impossible. And now that I work with about 100 different chefs in the city and the surrounding areas, now I have kind of a segue because one, I'll be a farmer, and then two, I know at least 80, 90, 100 different farms in the area. So I may start brokering food to people, and I've always connected. Like Juicy Kitchen will say, hey, where can we get potatoes right now? And then I just share the wholesale list. And they create their own relationships, and that's happened hundreds of times. Like Silvio's, Maggie Long. I mean, there's a laundry list of people that are doing it. It's just how do we get them all to do it on scale? Spencer, Echelon, these are new. Like even Little Kim is starting to, which is a branch off of Miss Kim. They're trying to do a plant forward based menu that's going to be extremely favorable to the farmers. So we kind of are plugging in at every intersection that we can on all levels. The target is to only sell 100 boxes a week now. We average usually around 50. We knew that it would take a 5-year plan to basically establish like a consistent 100 boxes a week. But if you look at the demographic between like Ann Arbor, Ypsi, Dexter, Milan, Saline, we're like literally chasing like 0.003% of the population. So that's kind of the target. You know, I've been asked to get involved in the school systems. I have 2 daughters that are 8 and 11. The food that they feed in our public schools, you know, it's a form of abuse. It's terrible. And, you know, I've tried to work with like Green Things and get on our Thurston campus and just, you know, let's upcycle that food and create organic material out of it and create a curriculum based off of upcycling food waste, creating compost, vermiculture, and, you know, teach these children how to eat the right food and like show them how to grow the food and make it a science lecture. And, you know, those are things that I think are really important because we are at a food crisis now. I mean, we're in a factory farm system that's heavily supported by the fossil fuel industry, heavily supported by pharmacology. And, you know, it's like people want to find this gateway, they just don't know how to get it. And that's why in the off season, like now, I just basically try to public engage as much as I can. So, been on NPR with the April Bear, magazine articles, probably 10 or 15 of those. I'm working on a few podcasts right now. And the bigger picture is it's not about me and it's not about the Hungry Locavore. It's just about doing the right thing by our community and building a resilient food system for tomorrow. So, and I've done some pretty large scale farming. There's a farm on Scio Church and Zeb Road that used to be the April farm. Richard Andres bought that from Tantre, and I was basically the field manager for that property as we erected it and put on those U-pick strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, asparagus, 400 chestnut trees. So we did some big things over there, but you know that's kind of the future is that we just try to build the off-grid food system, and I think it's very approachable here. Ann Arbor ranks like top 10 in the country for years on end. So I think it's all here. We just need to get the microphone and turn up the volume and get people to hear us and see us. And, you know, we make it as flexible as possible because it's not subscription based. So you can have a life, you can buy it once a month, you can go to Florida all winter, come back and buy it all summer. You know, we take the risk out of it. So
That's great.
Yeah, so questions for Ryan.
Got a comment. I really like this.
yeah, thank you. You know, it is a mad box of frogs to try to organize people. I'm sure you guys know this very well. But you know, in a 1 month span, we can feature up to 80 different businesses, and it's like we just have to trust each other. And you know, there's timelines and all these other things that you can never control. So you kind of have to have thick skin and just kind of roll with it like a farmer does. You know, you always have to be prepared to pivot. And thankfully, you know, the people believe in the mission that we work with, and they've been extremely supportive. And it's a vested interest, you know. It's like if I'm successful, then they're successful. And so iron sharpens iron. And as we find all these young entrepreneurs in both the fields and the kitchens, it just diversifies the portfolio even more, which makes it more attractive. And the new phase at the farm is going to make it even more interesting because now we're going to do open houses, we're going to do farm to table dinners. You're going to be able to walk through the field and see the food yourself. So it's going to be a very, very transparent system once we get to that stage, which isn't too far away. Those events will start happening here in the next 3 months max. So it's a good way to, one, exchange ideas with the patrons and get feedback, and then two, just give them a chance to like see the food that they're actually going to eat. we're very detached from the food that we consume. Nobody thinks about like, okay, we got a Kroger and who picked this food and who grew it, at what wage, at what cost to their economy, to their environment. How many fossil fuel miles do these bananas have from Guatemala? You start to look at the system a little bit differently, and then that's kind of what we're trying to create. It's not a stand at the podium and slam it real hard and like tell people what to do. It's just walk softly and just do the right thing and just allow the law of attraction to come into orbit with us. And on those coattails, Ari at Zingerman started to buy a box. I didn't know that his girlfriend Tammy Guilford was actually buying the box, and then I got a text from Ari about 6 months ago, and he was like, "Hey, are you the guy that's running the Hungry Locavore?" It was a 734 prefix, so I figured it was a chef or a farmer just trying to figure out how to inquire to get into the box. And I said, "Sure, what's on your mind?" And he said, "More importantly, are you the person that's writing the newsletter?" And I was like, "Okay." So I replied back, "Well, the only way you would get a newsletter is if you bought in the box. So obviously you've bought in it." And he said, "Yeah, I have. This is Ari from Zingerman's." I was like blown away. I was like, "Wow, hey, that's amazing and very humbling." And he said, "Come over to the Roadhouse. I want to buy you dinner." And he's like, and before we even get there, he's like, "One thing I want to tell you is our business was built around the newsletter that I write every week and still continue to write for the last 40 years. He's like, "Are you aware of that?" And I said, "No, I'm not." He goes, "Your parallels are so interesting to our model. Yet we never even knew, like you obviously didn't know that we did that, and we didn't know that you're doing this." So Ari has asked me to move the business to the bakehouse area. So we are now in one of their dry storage spaces. And it's not about an olive branch with Ari or like trying to give us more publicity. We haven't really even talked about any of that stuff yet because that's not my nature. It's just about doing the right thing and, just putting our best foot forward every week. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, I think as restaurant owners and farmers, the precariousness of what's coming at us is very daunting. And I'll be honest, I mean, in our project right now, because we feature 3 or 4 prepared foods each week, we actually could get priced out of our own project here. So the silver lining is that that farm place became available where this project started, and there's no cash exchange there. The only exchange is for food. So I'm not a tenant farmer, a contracted farmer. I'm just like, they're like, "Here's the field, here's the hoop house, here's the greenhouse. You do what you've done before in the past, and we'll just give it to you for an exchange of food." So really, that's an old school traditional farm trade, which is amazing. Is just blessed that they could see that and invite me back over there and try to pursue this dream of the sustainable food system.
Mhm.
And
Ryan,
another
did you say
question,
that there's a distribution source in Scio Township? Or how can our residents, other than going to your website, is there another way of making contact?
Well,
And
Jan, I was going to suggest that this map that's on his website, that anybody can go to, but maybe we should put this in our newsletter for the township with a write-up.
and I missed that other question there.
Ryan, do you, for Scio Township residents?
Yep.
Do you have did I hear you say you had like a distribution?
So yes, I do have an
Or
in-person
something?
distribution. It's at Dozier Coffee on Jackson Road, kind of right after Zeeb heading west. So that's part of Home's campus and Home Brewery.
Yep.
But I'm there every Saturday morning from 9 to 11, just inside the vestibule. And then the next closest spot would be out there at Jolly Pumpkin, and that one's supposed to open in 2 weeks. Blank Slate Creamery asked me if I would be interested in doing a handout at the very end of Jackson Road. And the space is just too small. They've only got like 5 or 6 parking spaces there. And I'm not sure that that would produce a positive impact for the patrons if they can't park. And I do know that White Lotus has bought a building somewhere in that area, and they're turning that into like a, I'm not sure, I don't want to say it's an Argus farm stop model, but it sounds very right up their alley. They already do aggregating on farm at the farm that they hold over there off Liberty. And I think it's just an extension to be more in the public eye. But they definitely told me that about 2 months ago. And if that were to mature, I'd probably lean into them more than I probably would with Blank Slate, even though obviously I work with both of them. But farmers obviously want to lean into farmers to help farmers. You know, it's like it would just make sense because they offer their own produce, their eggs, their cheese, their bread. I mean, they're a very powerful farm in the area. So
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, so I think we can try and, get something together for definitely for the newsletter. And I have a question, Ryan, is there like, has anyone put together a list just to promote the local chefs that are, kind of like their local food? I'm impressed that Pumpkin is like in the 80% range for using local foods. And does anyone put that together? Do we need a U of MC STEAM project to, promote that kind of thing? Or
You know, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I think that the ease of ordering through like Costco or Cisco Foods is, the restaurant industry is volatile in general, even in good times, especially when you look at how many restaurants are in Ann Arbor versus how big the population is. I mean, it is very in line with a college town that there's going to be lots of foodie options. I just think that it's so easy for people just to go onto these wholesale spreadsheets and look at these prices just to stay competitive and then buy that big box or factory farm feed. But I think what will change the pendulum here is that as we get bigger and say we consistently sell 100 boxes, we can almost be more not demanding, but more like, hey, we have to have 2 or 3 items from a local farm here. And at that point, it could either come from me or it could come from the list of farms that we work with. But we could actually change that motto, because if you're charging me $10 for a pad thai, and you've got 100 of them sold if you buy 3 local ingredients, it's going to sound pretty appetizing for you to do that. You see what I'm saying? So as our volume goes up, I think we can kind of say, hey, we have to flex a little harder. We have to do a little bit more. And even by doing that, the manufacturer will, like Bellflower and Ipsy, when they first started that restaurant over there was hardly any farm food on there. And then I started to work with Dan, the chef over there, and a few of the other people. And I was like, look, you guys are looking for this food and it's out there. And now you go in there, it's like every dish has local food on it. And patrons are very aware of that now. Like that is a very common thing that people are looking for. Like, where is my food coming from? And especially when you go to a restaurant, it's like, I think people would be willing to pay a few dollars more to know that they're supporting a brother or sister out here in the fields. And I think we're coming to that realization that food that's closer to home is definitely more nutritionally dense. It doesn't stress when it flies around the world and goes through different climate zones and temperatures and trains and planes and terminals. And that stuff puts a beating on the food's nutritional makeup. So once people can kind of see that limelight, I think that kind of changes the paradigm big time. And I think that's like where it's all heading. And we are an open template. So like another thing about joining Zingerman's, I was never aware until recently that they just share all their numbers, their books, their vendors. There's nothing to hide. It's about good food, good customer service, and good finances. And the irony is, like, we're doing the exact same thing. They're doing it on a global scale. We're doing it on a Southeast Michigan scale.
Mm.
So yeah, it is just interesting, the parallels between us. And I mean, obviously I didn't know any of that stuff. I met Mickey Maynard, who's the writer. She wrote a book about Zingerman's. She's been writing in the food and automotive sector in Michigan for 40 years. I spent 4 hours with her 2 weeks ago. Just through a social media post, I asked her if she wanted to go have a cup of coffee and just kind of pick her brain and talk about the current inflation and what she thinks might happen. And it was just really, really fascinating to, collect decades of information and like have somebody who's really trying to support the mission and basically like drip feed you ways to be more successful at the model.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's neat. I just need to, move on with our agenda, but
of course.
I think it's it's really interesting, and I think just what we can do either through the newsletter and other ways to highlight local foods, and I think the sustainability fair can also help to do that. And so I'll definitely we have the date and so forth. And I think I copied you on the save the date email that went out. So
Yeah. And I would love to participate. I mean, I'm all about supporting, speaks or events or getting involved. It's about doing the right thing to me. It's not about like this big glory and accolades and patting on the back. It's about
and I'm thinking we do raffle, it's not really a raffle as much as you do punch card and stuff, and you get to take home something. Last year it was little gourds, and so we can work with some local farmers and get some some interesting, it's the beginning of October, so it's really end of season, but there's still plenty of things that might be fun to do with that, and then highlight those farms with maps and ways of engaging.
Yeah. Yep. I would be on board for any ideas you guys want to throw at me.
Well, great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Well, I'm sorry that Tim wasn't here tonight, but we'll make him listen to the recording.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for your time, and everybody, see if you can grab a box some week, and
Well, I appreciate you guys letting me share this story.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna kind of move on a little bit.
Would
just
you like?
quick.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, would you like me to stay in the meeting, or is this stuff I'm not?
You can go. I mean, you're welcome to stay, but I'm sure you have other things to do.
Yeah. I just don't want to impede on if it's obviously stuff I'm not supposed to hear.
Oh no, this is an open public meeting, so you're welcome to stay if you want to listen to what we're up to.
Sure. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Just a quick update on the February 23rd solar event. We did the sun is shining in Scio, and there were a good 10 people, 10 like households at the event, and Beth from the county did a brief kind of county overview, and I did a little bit on the sustainability task force, and we're going to post the presentation because it was a very informative one. Kathy was there. And it really talked about what you need to do with solar, and there's a Google solar project that you can actually see, get an idea of the feasibility of solar on your roofs. It's a free sort of just put in your address, and if your roof is yellow, you're golden. My roof was very gray. But yeah, so I think it was a good kickoff. There were 3 people online, so it did, a few glitches there, but there were 3 people online. I haven't followed up with Homeland to see, how many people actually responded positively, but to me, they did a great job with it, information as opposed to selling. So that's what we were hoping they would do, and indeed that's what they did. So that was good.
Hey, Jan,
Yeah.
I'll just throw out there, my solar panels are now live.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and connected to the internet, and I'm getting my data. My panels produced over 22 kilowatt hours today. And that's not bad for a winter day, March, partly sunny. So I'm waiting for summer when we get 12, 13 hours of sunlight and it really starts cooking.
And you can really see that graph, right?
What's your
Oh, yeah.
installed capacity, Jeff?
9 kilowatts is my system.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any
All
storage?
right. Go ahead.
No, I don't have a battery.
Okay.
I looked into it, but frankly, the battery, it costs too much per kilowatt hour to be worth it.
Sure.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, then I think I sent everyone just today the March 25th webinar on agrisolar. Charles Gould from MSU Extension is going to do about an hour of looking at the research that they've done and some of the agrisolar projects that are, 1 is up and running and 2 are starting. So in Michigan, so I think that'll be very interesting. So how you can, use land for both energy generation and food and grazing. So that should be interesting.
Jan, do you know that unfortunately I'm going to be on spring break with my family. I'm going to miss that. Do you know if that'll be available?
It'll be recorded and we'll have the presentation up. Yep.
All right.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah. Yep. The 2030 district has a YouTube channel that we put everything on. Actually, if you register, you will automatically get the recording and the presentation. So if you register, that's fine. You don't have to come.
All right,
You don't take somebody's place. So it'll automatically give you a copy of it. Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. The stewardship. I'm trying to think. Oh, that was, I didn't take that off the agenda. The stewardship event, we talked about that our last meeting, I think, where with the didn't we? With the Blue Heron Rookery. Yeah. Bob, anything from the Huron River Watershed Council?
Well, there's 2 things I wanted to talk about. One is they gave an update on the quality of the water. They've been sampling, and we're improving in Mill Creek and Honey Creek. However, that they weren't able to do as much sampling as they'd wanted to. Excuse me. And the other thing was, we've been talking about having or participating between Scio Township, maybe trustees, or maybe this group and the watershed on a green infrastructure seminar that they would like to get us together and talk to us about, and we would talk to them about what we're doing. And in fact, remember you and I were talking about how I'm blanking on his name, our GIS guy who's doing mapping for the township, who used to be part of, well, let's see.
Eram.
Say it again?
He was part of Eram.
Right.
That's
Norm Roller.
You mean
Yeah, it's
Norm?
Norm Roller.
Yeah.
It's Norm.
Mhm, mhm.
So who should I put this seminar together with? Should it be at the trustee level that we get it organized, or should it be at ESTF or Planning Commission? and invite the trustees. I'd like to get them involved, but
Yeah,
and in
yeah,
fact, they had talked about were interested, but they have so much going on where they're being pulled in all different directions.
mhm.
So it's not
Yeah.
something easy to schedule.
I think what we should probably do is find a date that might work for, a few folks, ESTF, PC, and work with Kathleen with the trustees. And if we put it out
Okay.
there far enough in advance, like if we were trying to do a
May
something
or
in May.
something.
Mhm. And we can do the same thing we're doing with the get the development we want, choose maybe it's a Monday,
Yes.
with the week that we don't have the meetings, and then we can do it in person and also do hybrid and do it at the meeting hall. Yeah.
Okay. I'll
Question,
talk to Kathleen and
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah.
Which Kathleen are we talking about?
Oh, Brant.
Okay,
Brant.
thank you. Okay.
Yeah,
Because
oh yeah,
I
you're
didn't-
trying to get it in the
okay.
minutes.
Okay, yeah,
And
Yeah,
also,
because
do you
she's
want to
our
be the one that was
PC
tagged?
rep.
okay.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Okay, I'll do that. Thanks. That's it for me.
all right. All right, mobility, Kathy, you got a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, I've been meeting quite a bit with Shasta Angel, who works for Wave. And she normally goes about and tries to reach out to organizations, to residents and businesses in particular, along their routes, and tries to inform them about what the Wave is and what it can offer to them. For example, she would love to get in, say, at the Michigan Medicine Facility, and let them know that patients of doctors can get door-to-door service with the Wave buses. So she's working to try and do more of that kind of thing. I would love to do the same with her, particularly in communities such as Scio Farms, Woodview Commons, the co-housing, all of that sort of thing. Get in and do presentations about both Wave and what AAATA has to offer. I just have a feeling there's an awful lot of people that might be inclined to try the bus out, but it's kind of a pain to go online and figure out everything and how do you get on and what's the schedule. And I've never really ridden a bus around these parts before, and how do you pay for it and all of those ropes. And I just feel as though if people were exposed to that, it would be easier for them to jump in and give it a try if they had people there to answer their questions, and then try to frame events of this sort in such a way that we're getting feedback from people too about what they'd like the bus to do for them. They don't run often enough. They don't run late enough at night. They're not on time. That's a bad place for a stop, whatever. And we can feed that back to the bus system. So I'm trying to work, Shasta and I are trying to work on ways to bring all of this together and get input from people and output to them about what the services actually are. Encourage people with, Shasta's been working on some like raffle systems with gifts from local businesses and so on. And we're going to try to get somebody in from AAATA. And then Jan jumps in with, maybe we can use this also to get feedback and interest about the whole Jackson Road corridor project. So Jan, if you want to add more about that.
Yeah, just briefly, the survey is going to go live. I think they're going to have it completed hopefully by tomorrow, and it's just a kind of update of kind of getting feedback on people's thoughts about Jackson Road, their concerns, do you have a vision, how do you use Jackson Road, that type of thing, the corridor, and it's the corridor from Wagner all the way to Parker. And they are going to have a little splash in the newsletter that'll be going out in April too. So they have, the survey will be on the website. And I think they were starting to, experiment with it, because I saw a little blurb on the front page, on the landing page of the website about it. So my idea was, if Kathy and Shasta are going out and meeting with people, we want to have them have a QR code or a way of also leaving something with them, so people can also respond to the Jackson Road Corridor Survey. It's sort of the initial part. They're also building a website that'll be on the Scio website that talks about existing conditions. It talks about roadway safety. It talks about, just a whole range of things: the zoning, the land use, the types of development that's there, how it's changing, those types of things. And then part of that is then creating alternative visions for what could happen, and different visual options for Jackson Road. And we did have a kickoff meeting with a whole range of stakeholders that included MDOT and the Road Commission. Meyer was a part of it. We had there's a Western Washtenaw Business Association, City of Ann Arbor was there, City of Dexter, just a whole group of people. It was interesting. That group really focused on multimodal connectivity and safety. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how the project evolves, and it should be done by June. So hopefully the summer newsletter can have more of more content on what the framework is that we'll be working with, and trying to get the Planning Commission and the trustees to sort of adopt, as well as the DDA, so that new development that comes in, we're looking at possibly doing some rezoning, those types of things. So it should be hopefully a very helpful framework. All right. Yeah.
Also, just wanted to bring up, we sent that letter to the Board of Trustees about asking them to get EVs for the 2 pickup trucks that they want to buy over the next couple of years. And we sent them a letter from the whole task force. And then I went and spoke also, and I gave them evidence that it would actually cost, at least talking about Ford F-150s, that the electric vehicle, although it's got a higher upfront cost, after 3 years, you would actually have saved several $1,000s. And the longer that goes beyond that, even more is saved every year. So I spoke to them about that. And then I really tried to re-emphasize that I thought it was important for us. We thought it was important that they have a policy on giving priority to electric vehicles whenever possible. And I kind of emphasized offering our help, meaning I would do the research and so on, but we could help put together a policy like that. And I haven't heard anything from anyone. So I was just wondering if we should push that forward at some point.
Yeah, I think a draft policy would probably be a way of it, because obviously there isn't any time there, but that's part of the climate action plan that we put together, was to develop that policy, as well as, it's a purchasing policy. It would have fleets, it would have several things. And I think that it would be interesting see if the Catalyst community website has any fleet policies. Or the other thing would be to ask Beth Gibbons at the county, because I know I think they're developing some policies too. So rather than trying to start from scratch, there might be some things out there that we could use.
And I think I saw something go by in the last week or so from Catalyst Communities about that they're looking to, they're especially wanting to emphasize ways that communities can operationalize their goals, policies and things of that sort. So if we can put anything together it could probably be useful to other municipalities as well.
Yeah,
So anyway,
indeed.
something to
Mhm.
think about.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Jeff and Charlie.
Oh, we have stuff too. Do you want the scary news first or the good news first? You want to go ahead and talk about the compost thing, Jeff, then I'll talk about my conversation with Computer Alley.
Oh, okay. Well, naturally, I prepared very carefully for this meeting and packed up my laptop and all the data. And then I left my backpack at home. I'm at a friend's house. So I'm speaking from memory here. But we did get a proposal from Michigan Environmental Consulting on setting up the pilot compost program. And frankly, we experienced some sticker shock there.
Yeah.
We'd been expecting a couple of $100 a month for My Green Michigan to stop and pick up the compost bins of the collected food waste and take it away over to Spurt Industries in Wixom. And the proposal we got had that, and that was all fine, but it also included a lot of time and materials from MEC directly on setting up the program and administering it and answering phone calls and such. And they charge for their staff anywhere from $100 to $150 per hour, man hour. And they were expecting to spend, I think, 30 to 40 hours the first month and then 15 to 25 every
Sounds
subsequent month. So it all came out to kind of a worst case scenario, but it came out in the neighborhood of $60,000 for the first year. This on top of the budget issues that the township board is already facing. I think it's a non-starter as written, even though they say it's time and materials. And honestly, I don't see what additional value MEC is providing other than administering the pilot program and collecting data, which is something we could hire an intern to do, frankly. So those are my thoughts off the top. I mean, I want to go ahead with a program. I just don't think it's going to be this one.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
the cost was
yeah.
way higher than what I was anticipating. It was something like, now, Jenna did explain in the dialogue leading up to the numbers that this was a maximum case scenario. They did not expect to actually hit these numbers, but she thought it was better to give us the maximum possibility and embrace that. But she didn't honestly expect it. But even then, it was I think it was 65 to $67,000 or something to that effect. I mean, even
Yeah.
if they were off and it was 40,000, there went our entire recycling budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking too, is the core services that, we need are the bins, the liners, and the pickup. And that's
Yep.
for two of them at one site, it's $240 a month. That's doable. The question is, how do we monitor it? I looked on My Green Michigan's website. They have great information and education and so forth. So the question would be, you do need someone who's going to help manage it and promote it and so forth. People could use their own composting buckets or whatever. I don't think, you could give them, here's some ideas of what different people use for that. But I think it would take some legwork with this group and possibly, talk to, they have a person that does the custodial work at the township and whether or not they would help monitor it. So yeah, Ryan, this is a food waste pilot program that would have some bins at Township Hall. So Township Hall would be using it, so we could go to all the compostables and actually start training our staff, and events and so forth would be could be all compostable. And then the other idea that I had is, I don't know how the county's budget is, but we've got, we could put it in a place so that the West Service Center and Scio Township could use it, as well as then folks from the community. So,
And
Maybe you're
I
onto
think-
something, Jan. Is there some way we could get Washtenaw County to participate? To share this with us in some fashion?
we could ask them. I don't think they'd go for I just think, you look at how many people it's going to serve for $65,000, and
Yeah,
that,
that was
a
based on
per
100
person cost
people.
is, yeah, that just doesn't make any sense. But if we could come up with a specific plan on how it's going to be, the education component, how it's going to be monitored, really do what Michigan Environmental was going to do to promote it. For
I
instance,
still think,
yeah.
Jan, I still think this would be a great summer project for a couple of U of M interns from the School of Environmental,
Mhm.
from Cs. I mean, honestly, I've started to hire my team from that
Yeah.
school for this year. And that school is just full of people who would love to do that kind of thing, I think.
And if you could launch it in the summertime, you get it going, and then
Well, start it
and
now.
we'd still need to
We recruit
to
now and
Mhm.
let them come up with a plan. Let them
Mhm.
decide how they would collect the data and report it. Let them come
Mhm.
up with an education plan.
Mhm.
And I guess we have to find out if MCE would release that portion of it.
Well,
would
we
they?
could contract directly with My Green Michigan.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see what you're saying. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
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 And
And then the
remember,
other
last
potential
meeting,
there.
I said that I did see one of their vehicles driving around
Yeah,
in Scio.
right. And I think I think Zingerman's uses them too. Meyer uses Denali. I asked them who they use. I mean and yeah. So I think that's a great idea, Jeff. So I think really what we should do is we need to make sure we've got funds in the budget, but if we develop that program, talked with the trustees about, I think it'd probably be what's his name, in utilities that oversees the facilities, if we think that we could police that well enough to do it. Well, Charlie, what kind of, with the recycling, what kind of issue, you had some dumping issues, right? When you guys did the recycling program?
Not the one I was doing so much, because remember, that was
Okay.
just a Saturday
A Saturday
situation,
thing.
and there were
Yeah.
people there the entire time. So
Mm.
we did have some abuse, but we were there to catch it as it happened.
Mhm.
But before that, when they had the recycle bin out there before, unstaffed, it was out there, that was a bad situation. It got abused terribly. And that's why the township finally dropped it. They just couldn't deal with it anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was really sad. And that's one of the reasons we set up the one that I set up that way, to avoid, try to avoid that.
Mhm. Well, I guess the other take would be to try and, if My Green Michigan comes into the township and we work with the county to have some pickup, and then work with some of the apartment complexes, the food, where there are a couple of restaurants together, and sort of promote, and the interns could help do this too, and try and promote, have, this is the cost of it and so forth. I don't know. What do you think, Bob?
Well, I was going to ask Ryan a question.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, are you involved in composting at any of the farms that you're working with? And would there be the way we're setting this one up, the way I understand it anyways, that Jeff and Charlie set this one up, the food waste would all be taken away from this local area and turned into compost, but we wouldn't have that compost in this area anymore. The food waste to be turned into compost, but not so that it's being used here in Scio.
Right.
So would there be any way that some of the farms around here would take food waste and incorporate it into their composting programs? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of farms will do on-site composting. Like today I was at Norman Holt's farm down in Ida, Michigan. He's primarily like a off-season grower, so he does mainly storage crops. And with that, obviously you get a lot of rot or just damage just because you're holding it for 6-7 months. But a lot of like even Richard Andres, he had livestock too. A lot of those composts, they just go back into the animals, like chickens for eggs.
Of course, right.
Why are you guys trying to collect the compost and send it off out of Scio though? Like Jan had mentioned that Mike at Vestergaard might be interested, but the parking lot and that new site, I would assume he's probably fearful that he might get garbage in there if he's not manning it.
We went this way because Canton's already using this model. It's been very successful, and they've actually had very few issues with contamination because people are bringing their food waste to the collection site. So it's not a curbside.
Sure.
You know, it's people who are motivated, it's people who volunteered.
Mhm.
So it's still a pilot program for them, but they grew from 100 volunteers to 200, and I guess they're expanding it further now. So it's been a success for them. So we thought, let's see if we can adopt the same model. We just were not expecting the enormous cost.
Yeah.
And it's possible, yeah, like
Got a
Jan
grant for
said,
theirs.
it's possible they got a grant.
Mhm.
And we could do the same thing. We could try writing a grant, but frankly, you know, I collect organics as part of my company's work serving events. And it's not a complicated thing to do.
Sure.
And it's not a complicated thing to track. So if you monitor the site carefully enough and we educate, I think we collect a lot of food waste. And really that's the big motivation, I think, for us to do it, is because so much food waste still goes into the landfill. And we all know what happens when food waste gets into the landfill. It breaks down and produces greenhouse gases, and really it's a waste of all those nutrients.
Big
It should
time.
go back into the soil, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's no brainer, and it's 33% of the municipal waste stream, and we've just got to capture it.
Well, that was kind of what I was trying to implore about the public school system. I mean, I sit in there and watch lunch once a month, and I purposely stand by the trash can. You know, I'm like secretly observing how much waste is actually being produced, and then they aren't filtering it out either. You know, and the irony is like you could take it out into the back and start curriculum around this and like turn crappy food into really good food. But
there are a couple of schools that I've spoken at who do that. They compost and they have an organic garden.
the other thing I wanted to mention about that, and there is businesses that are actually really taking off in Detroit that are doing that model. So I don't know if you've done any research or tried to turn stones there. I've run into 2 or 3 farms that say that they're a vegetable grower and they have capacity, and then I go out and visit it, and their main bread and butter is actually taking food scraps out of the restaurant sector. And it's the exact same kind of thing like you explained with Canton. There's volunteers and they've organized themselves enough. I don't know if it's grant writing or people are being paid to do it. I don't know the logistics of it, but it's becoming a very, very popular model in Detroit. I know that for sure. There's 3 or 4 big companies that are moving in that direction to basically just recapture it to grow soil in like urban farming settings, which I think is pretty fascinating because it's like obviously it's a poorer community, and you know if you let that wasted resource go away, you know it could be the difference between erecting a neighborhood farm that supports a small community that becomes a bigger community. So it kind of ingrains a little bit of more respect in the blighted areas because that's where most of these places that are capturing that stuff are. It was pretty intense to visit some of those farms. It was like one house is left on the whole block and they've just captured the whole field and they're just basically making compost out of food scraps. But maybe something
Interesting.
to look at. I can't remember 2 or 3 of those businesses off the top of my head, but
Well, in Detroit, I work with a company called Unlimited Recycling,
Okay.
and they will take the recycling I have from a Detroit event. They'll also take the compost if we ask for it in compost carts, and then I think they go downstream. There's a place in Detroit that will collect that, will turn it into compost.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mhm.
there's definitely interest in doing that in Detroit.
Yeah, because there's people like rebagging it, just like the bags you see at Home Depot,
Mhm.
and they just resell it.
Mhm.
Which is kind of crazy to think, like, they're selling people's trash or waste. It's like, it's pretty fascinating model. It's
Mhm.
very innovative.
Article in the latest Farmer's Almanac about a farmer in California who had an anaerobic digester for his slurry. Then he added another anaerobic digester specifically for local food waste. And it implied that that's the most profitable part of his business.
Mm.
It
Mhm.
could be. It could be, and it's better than nothing. But I just came back from Lansing. There was a day of compost sponsored by the Michigan Recycling Coalition, and several subjects were covered, including the idea that you can anaerobically digest things. Still, composting it, turning it back into soil is really the best thing you can do. But anaerobic digestion is better than nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did a walk with Steve Soster at U of M Dining, and they have a machine that whips the liquid out of the food because they're charged by the municipality by the weight. And then that is being upcycled now as a faster version to get to compost, which I thought was pretty interesting because I think they're responsible, or he's responsible for 27 cafeterias on campus. But they've reduced their food waste, I think, by 40% so far, with just a few minor adjustments. And their target is to reduce it by 60%. And then obviously to try to get to net zero. But
Mhm.
that's a mega project considering the student population.
That's that's huge.
It's
Yeah.
really big. It's a pretty fascinating situation, because I
Mhm.
work with the U of M campus farm, and on Tuesday I have a meeting with MSU, and I'm going to start working with them as well this season. But like when I was talking to Steve, I was like, surely you guys could divert it to the campus farm because that campus farm keeps expanding. I live about a mile from the campus farm, and I've watched it double, triple, quadruple in size, so you can see the writing on the wall.
Mhm.
So,
But
Jen, moving forward, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking, I think we could do a couple of things. I like the intern idea, but I also like, there isn't any reason why the county and Scio couldn't start composting themselves. Because if one of the things I'm trying to get them to do is get rid of their foam cups, they should have all of these, any kind of event, even in their kitchenette and whatever. If they're going to use disposables, you got to use a compostables, and then get them the bags and things that they need. But I bet the county would be interested, and we could at least start with, a bin or two, and then I'm thinking of getting the interns involved, and maybe they can even do some outreach with some businesses, with some of the materials that My Green Michigan has, to try and see if they can, and, you know, I think because the bins are small, we won't have the same issues with people throwing crap in them. When you have a recycling dumpster, you can put a lot of crap in there, where the food waste bins are smaller. And I do like the idea of, the volunteers being registered, and having, at least basic training about, you know what to put in it and what not to put in it, etc. So I think, we could, develop our own program. If I don't know, obviously it would take a little bit more effort from this group to kind of get that going.
Jen, I think coordinating with accounting is a great idea. At one time, didn't the county purchase some property in Scio Township that they were considering using for a recycle reuse center or something like that?
Actually, Recycle Ann Arbor has property off of Jackson Road, right? When the boulevard ends,
Mhm.
that they
Yeah.
wanted to, they were hoping to do like an industrial center that was devoted to recycling and recycled products, developing products out of recycled with recycled content. But I haven't heard anything more about that.
Yeah,
I
I
think
haven't either. That
I
seems to
can
have
see
just kind
where
of stalled out.
the county would be a logical source for composting, you know.
Yeah. Well, they have a worm bin there at the West Service Center.
Really?
Yeah, they have a worm bin there.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least
What? Where is
last
it?
year it was still there.
I'm probably going over there tomorrow. Where's the worm bin?
It's back behind.
Back by that big building?
Mhm. When I saw it, it was next to the shed where you could go, and if you wanted to do a zero waste event where you picked up the stuff for the zero waste, it was more of a small
Hmm.
garage facility, and it was
Right.
kind of adjacent to that.
Hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll talk to Beth and see Gibbons and see if they might be interested, if they have any plans or whatever, because it could be centrally located, so both buildings could use it. And at $240 a month, if you split it with the county, they pay, it could be pretty. That'd be for 2 bins. That'd be pretty reasonable. And that'd be I think it's a once a week pickup. And that'd be a way to get started anyway. And then you could add the
Mhm.
volunteers and add the bins as you needed it.
Charlie,
I'll,
Might be onto something.
Charlie,
I'll ask Beth.
we can discuss offline a
Yeah.
little bit later about how to
Mhm.
respond to Jenna, but we should do it pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And
Oh.
that, yeah.
No, go ahead.
So, okay. I think that's at least a path forward, and then we can talk about if we want to advertise for some interns. Mhm. Okay. We didn't have
Computer
anything
Alley.
for resilience.
Yes.
Molly had to pop off. I wanted her to introduce herself, but anyway. Okay, so, and Janine, both Janine and Molly had some conflicts tonight, so don't have any health updates. I did give everyone a copy of the Green Communities Challenge, and I noted in just a column adjacent, it was everything that we had said last year that we were making progress on and going through. So if I just notated the things that have changed, either were complete, or things that you're supposed to be doing every year that we are not doing this year. But if people could get back to me with any comments by by, let's just say, the end of next week, and I'll send out a reminder. Just take a look at the things that you think your focus group has been doing. But it also might give you some ideas for projects and things.
Jan,
We could.
Yeah.
just really quickly, that's supposed to be for things done in 2024, correct?
Correct. It's 2024. Correct.
We're not talking about things just underway right now. Okay,
Correct.
okay.
Correct. Mhm.
Computer Alley.
Oh yes, Computer
Yes.
Alley. Finish up
Yeah.
with Computer Alley.
I had trouble nailing down Robert Ryan. He wanders in and out of there like he owns the place. I think he does, actually, but anyway. But I did talk to one of his long-term employees there that I've seen a few times, and he explained what they're doing there, and it's really more extensive than what I was expecting. He said they're actually doing quite a bit of volume, and they will take anything basically computer electronics related unless it has a CRT tube in it, like an old type monitor. So if it has a tube in it, no, but anything else they'll take, including cables that were with your
Wow.
computer system. And they have some, he said, professional electronics recycling company. He didn't seem to know the name of it, but I asked him if Shoepan sounded familiar, and he said no. So apparently it's not them. But anyway, they in turn pick it up from them and then take it off someplace. So, I just said who we were and that we were interested, if I remember right, in doing something like for the newsletter to bring people's attention to it, that this is available. And
Is it
now,
free?
yes, yeah, they don't charge anything, and you can do it at any time that the store is open.
Wow.
You can
Okay.
just basically come in.
That's
So if
great.
you want, I
That
can go ahead
needs-
and write something up and
Yeah.
try to still get a hold of Robert just to make sure he's good with it.
Yeah.
I'll wave it
And
by you and
the articles are due Monday. So
ooh.
yeah.
That might be difficult.
Well, see if you can.
Okay, yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Mhm.
Okay.
Give it a shot. I mean, and it doesn't have to be a long piece. It can just be,
Yeah.
what they don't take.
Right, yeah.
And the hours that they're open and the address. I mean, yeah, because that's perfect. Rather
Okay.
than paying for, a great big electronic recycling event, go there.
Yeah.
Okay, very
And
cool.
that's what I did. I said, well, what if we put it in there and it really increases your volume and we overdose you? And he goes, I think we can handle it. So, but
Okay.
again, I just want to throw it by Robert, make sure he's good.
Yep, that'd be
So,
great.
yeah, I'll come up with something. Okay.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, because if you can send it to me
Yeah.
like by like noon on Monday, then because
Right.
what I do is I put the different pieces together and then send it to Mary, and then she edits it and says, well, we can't fit this in, we can't fit that in, but we'll see.
I think the real key is if I'm going to be able to catch Robert Bryan between now and then,
Yeah,
because
okay,
I'd rather have him give it the okay than just on an employee's word. So,
yeah, okay, that'd be great. Yeah, if you can. If not, we'll aim for the
yeah,
summer.
yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, so get back with me on the Michigan Green Communities Challenge. Then I did send out the save the date email for folks. And I think what would be good is if we can think of some new folks that we might, I did send it to, so Common Cycle and what was the other one? I forget. Well, in any event, so if we can think of some new folks that we want to participate, we can do a little invitation and email that off.
Did you check human electric hybrids?
You know
That
what?
big-
That's who I was trying to think of. Would you email me the contact there?
Sure, sure.
And I'll send the save the date to them because they were great.
Yeah.
I really liked that was awesome.
Mhm.
And then I'll get all the stuff going with Meyer, and we have to have our little zoning layout. I'm going to try and get a bigger tent. I talked to Eagle and they said to go ahead and apply for the events grant again and do it in this cycle. There'll be some weird stuff going on with the because the events in next year, but I think we can we can pay for the tent ahead of time. We can do a bunch of stuff, so the the funds are actually expended but before the event. It has their year end is the September 30th, which is it's one of those things. So what we'll want to do, Bob Pattinson, signage. I want to maybe invest in a couple of those flag signs that we can use. The feathers. That would be kind of fun. Maybe we can budget for a couple of those this year.
If I remember right, those were between $150 and $300 a piece.
Yeah, we'll have to get an update on that because we'll be able to use them, for quite some time. Yeah.
Yep.
Now that we have storage, yay.
Is
Now,
Okay.
here's a thought, Dan.
Yeah.
Epic Races is based in Scio Township. Now, they don't do any Scio Township-based races, but they do have 2 recycling flags they might loan out for a sustainability fair.
Oh.
So I can talk to Eve, and I can at least ask the question and say, hey, if there's not an event that day, could they borrow your flags for the sustainability fair? I could ask her.
Yeah. What do the flags look like?
Well, they're big, they're large green feather flags, and they say recycling on them, and they're green. So I use them when I work an Epic Races event. They're next to my zero waste station, so I know all about them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, because
It's a
part of it is to
possibility.
just draw attention too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about buying a couple for me. So we'll get you covered either way. I also
Oh.
wanted to throw out that one of the presenters at the Day of Compost was a Meyer executive who's in charge of seeing that their leftover food is properly disposed of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was really impressed. I talked to him after his presentation too. By far, the majority of their food, once it's past its sell-by date, it actually goes to like a food gathering organization. So it does get
Mm-hmm.
consumed.
Yeah.
And then they try as hard as they can to dispose of whatever's left with as as little as possible going to the landfill. So I was really
Mm-hmm.
pleased to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm not surprised Meyer is saying it's okay with them to hold your sustainability fair in our parking lot.
Yeah, they're actually going to present in June, the second Tuesday in June. They're going to do a whole presentation on all of their sustainability because they're going into their supply chains and so forth. It'll be interesting. I've noticed a change in some of the stuff that they're doing is not the really cheap foreign made products anymore. So it'll be interesting to see what they're over. And they've been using Geo Exchange for their refrigeration, which I'm interested in learning more about too. So that, hey, if we can get them, and they did say that they'd be interested in entertaining some green infrastructure when their parking lot came up for repaving. So there might be, they might be interested in making an investment in that because they don't have any. That store was built before some of the more progressive stormwater ordinances were passed in Scio. So yeah, we'll see. It's always money, right? Okay. Okay, so we're gonna the articles for Monday that I'm trying to do, kind of short snippets. We're going to talk a little bit about the Fellowship Award project, where we're going to be creating, in conjunction with the county and with the City of East Lansing, modules for staff and elected officials for sustainability, sort of a foundation of sustainability and climate action. We're going to talk about connecting with locally produced food. And I'm going to do a little write-up on the Scio sustainability presentation, and then the survey for Jackson Road Corridor, and hopefully something about WAVE. So I'm not sure we usually get allocated 350 words. So it's short and sweet if we're putting all those little pieces in there. So we'll see how that goes. So if you can get the recycling, the electronics recycling, we can do that. I think, people like to read, kind of the short stuff too, and especially if it's content dense. So that's what I'll go for. Let's see. I think that's all I had. Does anyone else have any other announcements? Okay, hearing none. Thank you again, Ryan, and thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Did we
thanks
do
for having
public
me.
comments?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Jana, did I miss the public comments? Did we?
Oh,
pass?
one more public comment. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Rob, anything?
My public comments are, yes, Bob, you missed public comments.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, great. And I didn't stop recording yet. All right, so I'm going to stop recording now. We're all set. Thank you, everyone.
Minutes.
Minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. You
Move
can
to
tell
approve the minutes.
I closed my agenda. Okay. Minutes. Yes, we do need to approve the minutes. Anybody have anything they want to add or revise?
I move to
Okay.
approve the minutes.
I'll
Thank you,
support.
Bob. Support from Charlie. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, minutes of our February meeting are approved. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Great
All right,
meeting,
everyone,
Jana.
well done.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.